That's right. Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And PerGron.
And tonight, we're going to be having a conversation that's hopefully intellectually stimulating. Isn't that right, PerGron?
It won't be, but we hope.
PerGron, we're going to be talking about a library. A library! So yeah, the Brutalist.
Yeah.
3.5 hour fucking monstrosity about an architect. Spoiler alert, the architect literally gets raped by the American dream about 2/3 of the way in.
Yes, he does.
So PerGron, I'm very nervous about this. Like you saw this a couple days ago, and we've been kind of holding out until we can talk on air. I very much like the film, although I acknowledge, for me personally, I think the first half is incredibly strong, genuinely like just thrilling filmmaking. Second half, still good, still a lot to chew on. Maybe not quite as compelling. Maybe I think maybe some of the choices in the last act in particular are a little bit like Brady Corbet getting a little bit too high on his own supply as far as like the metaphors and stuff. Overall, I'd still give it a solid 9 out of 10. And if Emilia Perez is the villain of the Oscar race, as far as like the stuff that can actually win, PerGron, I don't care what you feel about. Like, you could give this movie a 5 out of 10 for all I care. This is absolutely a better Best Picture than Emilia Perez would be, right? At the very least,
literally anything is better. I would rather
the Hedgehog 3, baby, right in nomination.
I have it ranked above.
I'm not surprised. Okay, PerGron, what are your thoughts on this 3.5 hour fucking monstrosity?
I thought it was okay.
Oh boy.
I agree with you. The first half, like going into intermission, I was like, shit, that would be in my top 10. I wish I saw this. And then the second act happens.
Yeah.
And that second half, I was like, oh my God, what a bunch of pretentious fucking bullshit.
Oh God.
I said, this is Brady Corbet stroking his fucking dick in all of our faces. Aren't I the best filmmaker of the year? This is the best movie ever. And it fell apart for me so much in that second act. I still think it's good. And for all of the technical stuff, I think it absolutely deserves it. For the performances, they absolutely deserve the nominations. I just don't know that I will ever watch this movie again. At 3.5 hours, it is a brutalist. I'll tell you that fucking much. That was a so I think, again, the first act, if that was the movie, if the first act was the movie, I would have walked out and been like, goddamn, can't wait for the sequel. But that's after intermission, and I was coming off on a high. That intermission was sick as hell. I was really into the intermission.
Just the actual presentation of the intermission, right? Just framing it as the wedding photo, which is obviously given a lot of important context going into the intermission. I was studying that fucking wedding photo, and then just the countdown. I mean, it was all very well done, I think, for the intermission.
And even then, the first half of the second act, I was like, this isn't as good, but I'm in. Like, it really lost me, I think, once they fired all of the workers. I think is where it really just lost me there. Like, it's, I don't know. After that, I'm like, all right, do we need all this? And then they get into like, oh, we're going to do more heroin stuff. What's up with fucking heroin?
I knew you were going to have a problem with the heroin stuff.
Why are we always doing fucking heroin in these movies? Fucking queer put in a... And it's not like I would understand in a capacity of this movie is about drug addiction. Or even if it was like kind of a metaphor. I'm sure it is a metaphor. I'm sure I'm too fucking stupid. And Brady Corbet is going to point and laugh and go, haha, you fucking idiot. You didn't get it. But to me, it was just like, all right, I'm watching a dude shoot up. I don't need to watch this. I saw it in Queer, and now I see it here.
I think it's
And then,
definitely more plot relevant in Queer or in this than in Queer, where
yeah,
I mean, it doesn't come out of nowhere for one. I mean, it does
right.
kind of
And Queer are just fucking.
like it
Oh yeah,
happens
Andy's
after a
addicted.
time jump where it would make sense that he's using drugs after the time jump.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's just. Oh, I'm sick of it. We don't need more heroines in movies.
And I feel like we did have a big climactic resolution with the heroine with what happens with Felicity Jones. Not necessarily a resolution, but it's certainly a plot point. I think resolution is one of the things that this movie is kind of allergic to.
Yes. Yep. I hated the ending. I hated the fucking ending. That fucking ending. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like if it had ended at Felicity Jones doing her big thing, and then like he kicks her out, ambiguous ending, I would have been fine. The fucking flash forward with the 80s synth music. Come on, Brady. Come on. But yeah, I don't know. It could be that I was really hopeful for this movie because of all of the hype that everybody had put on it. It could be that like everyone's like, "Oh, Felicity Jones literally steals the second act." I did not feel that way.
No, I don't
Like
either.
I thought she was good.
Yeah,
Like she's good, but she did not steal the second act. Guy Pearce, what a fucking performance. I'll give him that. I think he was absolutely the performance of the movie the whole way through. I don't like the rape sequence. I don't like rape sequences in movies. That's just something I stand on.
And that one was honestly one of the most like unnecessary.
Oh my god, it felt like he put
Hey,
it in.
Laszlo, you know how I'm fucking you up the ass in terms of our business?
Right.
Well, now I'm literally going to fuck you up the ass.
Yep, literally gonna do it. I said about the substance.
Laszlo, do you get it? I represent the American dream, and the American dream is fucking you right now.
I said it about The Substance, my favorite movie of last year. When I said The Substance, fuck subtlety. But sometimes you need a little bit of subtlety. Sometimes you need to be a little bit more subtle than
I feel like with this movie, there's certain things, you know, like literally being raped by the American dream that are absolutely beyond unsubtle. But then there's other elements like, oh, what happened to Van Buren? If you listen closely, you can hear somebody say, oh, I think I found something when they're looking for him. And that implies that he killed himself. And it's like, no, this is a very important character. And you guys really should have fucking had some sort of resolution to him, dude.
You don't get, like, also, why would he kill himself after one rape accusation from, like, a poor immigrant? That's not how billionaires handle shit. They just pay him off.
One of the things that I do want to go into with this movie is just kind of like the hierarchy of the Van Buren family and kind of like some of the skeletons in the closet there, because I really think that's one of the things I do latch onto with the second act is I think there's a lot of interesting like generational trauma going on behind the scenes that the audience isn't really directly spelled out, but I think does kind of add to everything. But let's kind of start at the beginning here. We have Crimson SP in the comments. They're saying y'all just randomly popped in my algo because of Brutalist. Well, that's great, Crimson. PerGron and I, we try and cover Oscar movies, but the Brutalist is one of the only ones we've done like a full podcast on. Have we done any other podcasts on the Best Picture lineup?
The Substance.
Oh, duh. Yeah, The Substance. Yeah. So occasionally, if it's batshit enough to cover.
Yeah, we should have done Anora. That one I think we should have done. But
I need to rewatch it again. I've already seen it twice though. But make no mistake, we are going to do our Oscar nominations reaction, which we are just kind of marinating in that bullshit.
I
It's so
I'm
crazy
catching.
because they literally did everything right in certain elements, like with the
Mm-hmm,
substance.
mm-hmm.
But then Emilia Perez gets as many Oscar nominations as fucking Gone with the Wind, Return of the King, Forrest Gump, Mary Poppins. Like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Emilia Perez is on the same level as fucking Mary Poppins.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it is. They're the same movie, basically.
Oh God.
I catch Nickel Boys
Hello,
tomorrow.
hello, hello.
So
I would like to know about exchange operations.
I'd rather watch Dick Van Dyke do it. That would at least be somewhat entertaining.
Could you imagine if Dick Van Dyke played Emilia Perez?
Mm-hmm.
All
That would
right.
be. It'd be better. It'd be better. But yeah, I see Nickel Boys tomorrow. So the only one I'll have missed
Ooh.
is yeah. Don't tell me anything. I don't want to know anything. um, but the only one I'm gonna miss as of that moment then is I'm Still Here, which I really want to catch, but it's just not showing.
I'm desperate to catch that movie. People are
Yeah.
pretty stoked on it.
That's the only one of the after I watch I'm Still Here. That is the only Oscar Best Picture, only Oscar big name that I'm missing, except September 5. But that only got screenwriting, and I'm kind of
Who
like,
cares about September 5?
yeah,
September
I'm
5
kind of
is
not.
done.
Yeah, so I'm kind of like, once I catch Nickel Boys, I'm gonna fight to find somewhere to watch I'm Still Here before the Oscars.
I feel
I'll have been almost caught up. It'll be great.
Last year, the Santa Rosa Theater did a pretty good job of screening stuff like it's not Strange Days. What was the Perfect Days? And then God, why am I blanking on all the names of the international nominees?
I missed
the Teachers Lounge.
I
saw the Teachers Lounge in that theater.
I missed Zone of Interest last year because nothing showed. It didn't show anywhere.
Zone of Interest was the absolute last thing I got to see.
But yeah, I think The Brutalist deserves a lot of the stuff that it got. It at least deserves the nominations. And if it wins Best Picture, I'm definitely not going to be angry about it. I think technically this movie is, I mean, it'd be kind of a boring pick in my opinion, but you know, but I think it's
for Honora at this point.
I'm rooting for Honora at this point.
I mean, like obviously you would want to see the substance, but that's
I mean, the substance isn't happening. I'm stoked that I got a nomination. But yeah. But we'll talk about that on the next episode.
Okay. So let's start. Let's just kind of go through the film here. Obviously, a lot of stuff to unpack. What?
In the comment, real quick, they asked a question.
Yeah. We will address that, Crimson SP. Feel free to give us any other comments or questions for the movie that you have. We'll try to address them, but I want to go in kind of a chronological order here.
Okay. Get ready. 3.5-hour podcast. Let's do it. Intermission in the middle.
Oh, God. One thing is that, just to kind of touch on some of the stuff of Crimson SP's comments, the niece is an actress who pretty much did the same thing in Brady Corbet's Vox Lux, I think it's called. I haven't actually seen the movie, but I know that she plays the younger version of Natalie Portman, and then later on in the movie, she plays Natalie Portman's daughter. So Brady Corbet just kind of likes to do this with this particular actress, which frankly,
I like to make it so you don't talk.
What?
I like to make it so you don't talk specifically.
Right. I don't necessarily. My whole thing with the niece is that I think Brady Corbet thinks he's doing like something way more profound with her character than he actually is. We'll get to that with the ending. I don't love the fact that the whole film is like bookended by her. Literally, by the time we got around to the ending, I straight up forgot that the first thing we see isn't Laszlo and the ship. And I don't necessarily think that very opening sequence with her being interrogated is like super memorable.
No. Especially when it's followed up by the upside down Statue of Liberty. Like that's kind of an iconic moment already.
What I think is so effective about that moment is not just the actual Statue of Liberty shot, but the build up to it. How I've heard others describe it this way, and I very much agree. Like the innards of that ship when you first see them, like the way that it's lit, it literally feels like Laszlo is like moving through the bowels of hell or something like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that is one of the visual metaphors that Brady Corbet kind of gets right on the money there of kind of the hell that Laszlo had to go through to get to the country, only for boom, the Statue of Liberty to be upside down,
Mm-hmm.
which just kind of signifies like, yeah, he's been through hell, but he's
That
probably going to have a long way to go yet.
that sentence sounds like a more interesting movie. Adrian Brody crawling through the bowels of hell to find an upside down Statue of Liberty.
Oh my god.
Some Planet of the Apes shit.
I was gonna say that's the third movie in the new Apes trilogy.
Yeah.
Planet of the Apes goes to hell. And Adrian Brody's just going to be playing the same character.
Yeah, he is playing Laszlo.
All right. So yeah, early on in the movie we get establishment with the furniture store, the cousin, I want to say, and the wife.
Yeah.
We have like a little bit of a mini Challengers arc where the wife is kind of coming on to Laszlo a little bit. Laszlo is, I think, none the wiser. And I think that Attila, the cousin, is kind of like catching on to it. And my whole read of why that whole situation breaks down is basically that, like, the wife basically sees Laszlo as like the talented person that she wishes her husband could be and is resentful about it and is basically like, I'm going to treat this dude like the way that like this dude is basically what I want you to be as far as like my business partner. And
Right.
so that develops a lot of jealousy with Attila. And then obviously it breaks down with the Van Buren deal. But what do you think of that whole like kind of challengers dynamic we have going on?
Yeah, I mean, it was I kind of found it not crazy engaging, not crazy like I don't know. I could have taken it or left it. I really liked the dynamic between the cousins, but the wife kind of just turning at the end and being like, he came on to me and then them kicking him out. I don't think it was like led up to all that well, unless I'm misreading something, which is possible.
Asher Barton, yes, I have seen the movie. Why did I say something that implied that I had not? Yeah, no, I mean, I think that with the wife, I think again, kind of like some of the subtle skeletons in the closet stuff with the Van Burens, I don't really think it's spelled out for you at all. I think it's just stuff you kind of have to interpret. Maybe we'll talk about a different one. No, I'm talking about the Brutalist, Asher. So I don't know what you're confused on. Maybe I just wasn't spelling it out right. Peter Piper. Did you enjoy it?
Oh! I thought we were just letting that hang there for a minute. Yeah, that was funny. That was good. I liked the him like the implication that he's trying to like learn English comes back later of like he still speaks like shit kind of thing. So I do like that. I wish we could have gotten more moments of him kind of struggling with that and saying other stupid things. It kind of added a little bit of levity.
I mean, I feel I was waiting for that moment in particular. The second time I saw it, I was like, "Oh boy, here we go. We're gonna get to the Peter Piper bit." Peter Piper, pick a big old peppers. How many pickled peppers did Peter Piper pick?
You kept quoting it, and I thought it had like way more of an impact on the story going into it. I'm like, he keeps quoting this. This is gotta be like some like integral moment in the movie.
No, it's just very memorable to me.
It's just him saying Peter Piper. Yeah, the
I
Red
was
Count
talking about
Warlock
Vox
boys.
Lux earlier, Asher Barton. I was referring to Vox Lux in regards to the same actress who plays Laszlo's niece and then the niece's daughter in the future in this movie. Also played young Natalie Portman and then Natalie Portman's daughter in Vox Lux. And it's a weird thing that Brady Corbet keeps doing with his casting that I'm honestly not thrilled with. I don't want to say I'm mean. I mean, I think the actress is fine. I don't think she's the type of actress where she's like, oh my God, what an amazing screen presence. We have to have her play multiple roles. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, I can agree with that. She was just that
Just
was
all
definitely
right.
one. Yeah, like she was fine.
All
Definitely
right.
not a role that sticks out in my mind.
And yet I feel like she's supposed to be like the most important character of the whole fucking movie based on the ending.
Yeah.
Which is really irritating.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's talk about the library. A library. Tell me that's not a fun delivery on Kai Pierce.
It was
a library.
No, that was a really good crash out moment on film. I enjoyed watching him just absolutely freak the fuck out about it. And which is crazy because I thought it looked like shit. I don't know if this is just like I like it gaudy. That's
Even
what
during
I like.
the opening the doors moment.
I mean, it was just an empty room.
Yeah, it's brutalist architecture.
I know. I'm not a brutalist architecture.
I'm not
fan.
really that into brutalist architecture either. But
at the Bronx Zoo, their big bird house is all brutalist architecture, and it's just so jarring when you're walking in there because like the rest of the zoo is very, kind of like American Gothic, like very old, like gargoyles and shit. Like it was obviously built in the like early 1900s, and then there's just like this giant brutalist structure in the woods, and I've always thought it was weird.
maybe Laszlo Toth designed it.
Very possible.
Okay. Crimson SP says I really dislike brutalist architecture and felt like it didn't live up to the elegance of the library, to be honest. I'm not quite sure what you're trying to say. Are you trying to say that you think the library, the elegance of the library, like didn't feel brutalist to you, Crimson? Regardless of what you feel about how the library is presented, I agree. For me, it wouldn't be like my personal choice of library. When I imagine a good library, I want like the thing that bothered me was that I think the shelving is really cool. The way the shelving folds out, I think that was really cool. I think what bothers me is the lack of furniture because when I picture a library, I don't picture like the one old-fashioned chair. I picture like some nice couches, maybe a beanbag chair.
I want a stack of ancient books nobody's touched, like this dusty ass carpet, mahogany, just chunky furniture, cabinets upon cabinets. I want like what you would find in an eccentric like robber baron's home.
Right.
But that's okay.
Would you settle for a Beauty and the Beast library?
I would settle for that. Yeah, I think that's a good settling point. Yeah, that's a good spot to settle on. Yeah. But no, I like an old manor, so. But yeah, I mean, I like the way they present it. At least he's like, yeah, this is art, and art's subjective, and that's great. I can look at it and be like, wow, that's an empty room. And somebody else can look at that and be like, wow, it's a beautiful empty room.
Right. Okay, the library design seemed like it over-delivered on Toph's prowess and his craft over what brutalism represents. So yeah, he basically is saying that the library doesn't seem brutalist enough, which... Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like it is a little bit brutalist as far as like just the empty space. That's a big part of brutalism. But it's not necessarily imposing. So, yeah, I kind of see what you're saying there.
Yeah.
Kogias says, I have no interest in the film. Big surprise.
I think this would be the movie for you. I really think you would adore this movie, Kogias.
Gets to the
Knowing
part about Laszlo literally being raped by the American dream.
Yeah, if you don't like subtlety, this is a movie for you. Even more than The Substance.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. But yeah, what comes after? It's like he's doing the coal mining and the
I do
shoveling.
like the just really quick. I do like the. I think the montage of them building the library is one of the best sequences, in spite of what you feel about the finished
Oh
result.
yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think that was when they dropped the big skylight and
Uh
you're
huh.
like, fuck.
One thing I will say is that his friend character who we met at the at the food bank.
Uh-huh.
I'm not crazy about that guy, and honestly, I hate to even say this, but kind of feels like the token black character in the movie a little bit. Does it not
Oh,
to you?
definitely. They do nothing with him beyond like, hey, he's black. It
Yeah.
That's kind of his whole point.
I mean, I feel like
Um
they were trying to do
Also,
something with the son in like the first half in regards to like,
then they just drop the son.
yeah. So
And
that
also
character seemed like a
him
waste.
being the guy, him wow, what the fuck am I trying to say? Him being the guy to get Laszlo hooked on heroin too is a little like
Yeah.
is a little Amelia Perezzy, if you catch my drift.
Yes, yes,
I,
yes.
I I I get what they're going for, and I get, but like, yeah, did you think that one through a little bit? Maybe, maybe take a little look at that screenwriting again, Brady.
Kind of felt like
Um,
maybe Laszlo should have been the one to introduce him, since he was the guy that was like trying to be like a responsible father and everything when he's
yeah,
first
or like
introduced.
he was already hooked on it because he broke his nose.
Right,
So
right,
like,
yeah.
why do we have to have it be that guy introducing it? Like he's already on opiates. Like, all right, cool, he's on it. Problem solved. Um, I don't
But
know why we got to
just really quick
reintroduce him.
with the montage stuff. I mean, I do want to just savor like the editing specifically in the first half is pretty
Mm.
masterful, I think, right?
Mhm. Yeah, at
What do you think of
cinematography too.
yeah, the cinematography, absolutely. What do you think of the use of the newsreels, like basically incorporated into the sound design during the montages?
Yeah, that was neat. I think a lot of the filmmaking here was really good.
Uh-huh.
I just think that the screenwriting and the lack of subtlety are kind of where, and again, it has flaws. Every movie has flaws. This first half of the movie, I was willing to be like, okay, I overlooked I am willing to like embrace these flaws and continue with this movie. Um, like I'm not gonna sit here and say that every movie in my top 10 last year didn't have a ridiculous amount of flaws. They all definitely did. Um, it's really the second half, but yeah, the all the filmmaking side of it just gorgeously done.
Uh-huh. So with Harrison Van Buren, again, just fucking wonderful wasp name, just like truly iconic character name right there, I think. I really do love, like, in spite of how I'm not crazy about where his arc ultimately ends up. I really do love how he's introduced into the movie, and the only way I can describe him is he's a bull in a china shop. Like he's already like directly being like outwardly racist about the token black man.
Mm-hmm.
He's just like, again, the whole like a library, which I can't stop quoting apparently. Yeah, I don't know, I just really like I really like that introduction to him. I kind of feel like throughout the whole first act, he's kind of like the shadow looming over the movie, just like Felicity Jones is kind of the shadow looming over stuff that doesn't really appear until the second act. But in the first act, he's definitely like, okay, when's he gonna come in? When's he gonna come in?
Mm-hmm.
When Attila says to Laszlo outside the furniture store, they got an important client. I'm like, oh boy, is Guy Pearce gonna be here? But it's like, no, we gotta wait for him. We gotta wait for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
it's his shitty son.
yes, yes, which we'll get to. But yeah, I think the whole thing, the whole setup of him being furious about the state of the library, and then
Mm-hmm.
cutting to years later where the library has almost kind of become like a local legend within his like little inner circle of rich people. And him like being like, I need to seek out the man who made this so I can exploit him.
Mm-hmm.
It's honestly very Daniel Plainview coded.
Yeah, my favorite moment of the movie comes around this area, and it's when they're like, he's like, Guy Pearce is like, what are you working on now? And he's like, a bowling alley. I thought that was really good delivery. I wish he would have finished the bowling alley. I like bowling.
I'm not gonna lie, I really like bowling alley architecture specifically. Yeah. I like that kind of retro shit.
Imagine Brutalist bowling alley.
I could picture it. I could picture it. I mean, like the soundscape of a bowling alley is already relatively oppressive. You know, just build into that.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that he was hesitant too. He's like, he's at the dinner and he's like, what do you want me for?
Well, that's the whole thing. That's what I love is, you know, we have that conversation. We have that great moment where Van Buren shows him the photos and the news articles of his work in Europe. And I feel like in that moment, that's where the audience, like we kind of already assumed that this was like a talented guy. But like that moment, like I love how it emotionally hits Laszlo. But for the audience, it's also like, oh shit, like this isn't just like a talented guy. This guy is kind of a genius. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Van Buren is also just there, like, yeah, I'm gonna take advantage of you. Like,
right.
You know, it's such a and that's one of the things, like, even as much as I really don't like some of the choices in the second act, I do think if the message of the movie is ultimately like, do not believe in the American dream and do not get suckered in by it, I honestly think it is pretty effective, because especially when you consider that whole sequence that kind of more or less ends off the first part, where it's like that extended sequence where Laszlo goes to the mansion. He thinks he's just going to be checking out the library, and instead it's like, look at my pet architect. You know, but that sequence is done in such a good way where it's like, on some level, it's absolutely insidious that Van Buren is just marching Laszlo around like this. And if you're observant, you can kind of pick up on the insidious quality of that. But I really like that at the same time, the audience has seen Laszlo just trying to just crawl and scratch and just make something work in this country. And now he's got the chance. Someone has noticed him, you know?
A big rich Mille has noticed him.
I very much think it is a metaphor for like studio filmmaking. But you know what? It's fine. It's fine. Van Buren coming in with the A24 money.
There's definitely some Weinsteinisms going on later.
Yeah. Okay. By the way, your video is like a little laggy, but that's
yours is incredibly laggy for me.
Is it really?
Fuck. Yeah, you keep like going back and forth. It's like whiplash. It's like
you know what? Should we just No, goddamn it! I don't want that avatar though. Should we just? Can I go out and come back in and change my avatar, and we can just be avatars?
Be avatars.
Yes.
Yeah, that works. That's fine.
All right, give us 1 second, folks.
Okay, I'm gonna vamp here for a second while we wait. Yeah, it's a good movie. I think it's worth watching at least once. Not a movie I'd ever watch again, I don't think, but it's pretty good. All right, there we go. Ooh. Oh yeah, I got the weird dinosaur thing.
All right. So addressing a couple of Crimson's comments here, they say, I really like the opening credits with the bus ride to Pennsylvania. Yes, I do. I do like those credits for sure. the score is again kind of masterful, although I will say I do think a lot of the big heavy hitting themes in the score probably intentionally don't come back in the second half. But again, it's kind of one of those things where Brady Corbet is just a little bit too high on his own supply in regards to like, I'm going to build up all this cool shit in the first half and then just totally like this. I feel like is a really good example of a movie that does subvert your expectations, but does so in kind of an ill-advised kind of way. You know what I mean? Like, we'll get into that more with the second act. There's a lot of stuff that you're expecting from the second act that it just does not deliver on.
Right. Hello?
Okay, sorry.
Oh, all right.
I was about to have a verbal interruption.
Aha! I'm like, oh no.
No, I just hate that I have to still worry about that shit.
You vanished. You disappeared into the space.
Okay, Crimson also says some of the reviews I've seen think the movie is a giant metaphor for Corbet constantly being fucked by the studio heads and realizing his vision as an artist. I would say that's pretty on the nose, but Brady Corbet is a very on the nose filmmaker, so I'd say it's probably accurate, honestly.
I would agree with that, yeah.
But I don't know. I just think that
it's not even the most on the nose movie this Best Picture season.
Right.
There's like 2 or 3 above it.
I just think that with Corbet, with Van Buren, I feel like just the introduction of him and just the that kind of like luring you in, like I think it is handled very well. Again, we'll get to the second half, but in the first half, I was stoked. I was like, this genuinely feels like the next Daniel Plainview, Eli Sunday, like 2 titans of acting going against each other, 2 radically different points of view. But yeah, like I said, I do think that the build up to the intermission is thrilling. I think that the actual intermission is really well done. I feel like it's interesting because the intermission does kind of tell you like what side of the fence you're going to land on with this movie. Like, are you going to be the person who just kind of like vibes more with the American dream stuff in the first half, or are you one of those people that is going to get really into the whole like, yeah, he's getting fucked by the American dream, fuck yeah, you know? Are you going to be into that? And for me, obviously, I'm more into the first half, but
right.
Let's talk about I like that avatar.
Well, real quick, I want to tell you about my going into the intermission.
Okay.
Because my fucking shit ass Regal Cinemas.
I heard about this. Yeah.
Had the fucking lights come on 20 minutes before the intermission. So I guess it didn't account for the trailers or the fact that Regal movies start 15-20 minutes late anyway without the trailers. That I just had the lights on for the like leading up to it, which is incredibly distracting.
That would have driven me absolutely crazy, especially considering that specific chunk of movie is the best chunk of movie in a movie that has a lot of chunks to it.
I was going fucking googledy bonkers right now. I was freaking the fuck out. I'm like, dude, the guy sitting next to me, it was him and his girlfriend. He looks over at me and he goes, "Can you believe this shit?"
Oh man.
And then we went out during the intermission. It was an 8 p.m. on a Thursday night. They had a showing of The Brutalist starting at 8 o'clock. So, like, people were going in to sit in the movie, and they shut the fucking concession stand down.
Yeah.
Which was absolute bull. I went out to go get some peanut butter M&Ms. I was like, I'm starving. I've been eating all day. I went to see 3 movies and didn't nourish myself. And then the guy, like, they're all standing behind there, like, filling drinks and stuff. And I walk up with my peanut butter M&Ms, and I want to get a refill on my drink. And the guy goes, "Oh, we're closed, actually."
That's
So
fucking annoying.
yeah, so don't go see late night showing at fucking Regal Cinemas at least. Late night. I started at 6 p.m. But yeah, past that, it was pretty neat.
Right.
The intermission.
So I want to talk specifically about the some of the implications about the Van Buren children. And for me, I think one of the more interesting elements of this movie, just as far as like, it's not exactly confirmed, but I think by all intents and purposes, it is like you can pretty much put the pieces together. I think Harrison Van Buren was sexually abusive to his son. And I think
Uh-huh.
that plays in the way that the son acted. I think that plays in the way that the son was overly defensive about the father, especially in the last scene where he's straight up having a panic attack over the accusations.
Uh-huh.
I think it plays in a lot. I think it plays in the fact that, like, throughout the second half of the movie, that fucker is literally trying to be Harrison Van Buren with the mustache
Right.
and everything. You know what I mean?
And also tries to do a little raping of his own.
Yes, which is one of those things where I don't understand what the fuck Brady was even thinking. It's a big plot point. Why you got to make it ambiguous? Like Brady's just sitting there, like ha ha ha, tee hee hee. They won't know if it was a rape or consensual. And I'm like, Brady, that's kind of important information
Yeah,
that the
that's
audience like should know, dude.
right. Like that's gonna inform our opinion on these characters.
Yeah. Like, what are you doing, Brady? And he's just like, no, tee hee hee, tee hee hee. I'm like suddenly going into an old Kevin Smith routine with the tee hee hee stuff.
Kevin
No,
Smith, brutalist.
that was Kevin Smith's The Brutalist. Oh dear God. But no, I definitely think that that moment with the presumed sexual assault of the niece, but maybe not. That was definitely the first time where I was like, oh, okay, this movie's not going to spell shit out. Like, that was kind of a wonky piece of editing right there.
Uh-huh.
And it's a shame because it's like the movie up until that point has been so well edited. You know what I mean?
Right.
But now it's just like, oh, wait, no, that was I don't even understand. You know, it's a bad piece of editing. I think Jenny Nicholson said this. You know, it's a bad piece of editing when you see something and you aren't entirely sure of what you just saw.
Right.
Brady's over here being like, that's the point. And I'm like, fuck you, Brady. Like, no. Okay, I agree with you. The movie goes a little off the rails. See what I did there?
Yep.
After the train crash. But the train crash itself is definitely one of the more memorable visuals of the movie.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And again, I think the visuals throughout the whole thing were really well done.
Uh-huh. But yeah, then we I don't know, I just kind of feel like at that point we are really jumping around. Does Laszlo go back and work for Van Buren before or after the whole thing with the niece?
That was after.
Okay.
Yeah, because he was working and Felicity Jones was hanging out at the like at their picnic table and everything. Or their picnic
Right. Which I do think is I do think one thing with Van Buren is, and Felicity Jones we should probably talk about a little bit as well. Again, I think it's a good performance. I just don't think it like stole the whole movie or anything, but I think she did a really good job. I think there's some powerful, for me the most powerful moment for her is comes pretty early on into the second act when she's in the bathtub with the niece, and Laszlo is honestly kind of being a little bit of a shit to her. Like, he's not really giving her the time of day. And with Laszlo, let's do you agree that with Laszlo you can kind of tell right off the bat, like with the wheelchair situation, he got more than he bargained for. He kind of just wants to focus on his work, and now he's got this, and it's just a little too overwhelming for him. Yeah. So, but there's that moment, like, pretty early on, she's, like, asking Laszlo if she wants to come into the city to visit Attila. I do like that Laszlo never really gets into what happened with Attila. I wish that the Attila stuff would have, again, I wish a lot of stuff in this movie would have had a little bit more of a resolution than it actually did. And she's just kind of, like, talking to the niece, and she's just, like, even hearing his voice in the other room, she says something like, it's heaven or something like that. And I'm like, oh man, this lady is, she's very devoted to her husband, and her husband is not that devoted to her. And that's kind of sad.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I definitely got a lot out of that moment in particular with her performance. Just like that kind of like they're on like two separate tracks of like how they view the other one at that point in time.
Yeah.
Let's see. And she does have a great, I do think that the last scene before the flash forward is a good scene. I just wish there was a little bit more to it.
Right.
But Crimson asks, what do you think of the Van Buren son approaching the niece at the lake? I definitely thought it was setting up to her ruin without any resolution either too. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that we don't even really get how it affects her or
the next time we see her too, she's fucking pregnant. Like, I was like, is that his? And then, like, it's obviously not, because she has another guy sitting there next to her. But it's like,
and it's like a flash forward years later, but yeah.
Right. But it's like, you would think that would affect her somehow. You would think the fact
but you see, we need to get a Brady Corbet voice going on. I don't know what he fucking sounds like. I've listened to podcasts with him, but I can't do an impression.
It's probably just pretentious.
Well, you see, PerGron, that's the point.
Yeah, just do the Chris Stuckman.
Well, you see, PerGron, that's the point of the niece being assaulted, is that she doesn't feel anything. It's a powerful commentary on how women have been so abused by American society that they're just all but numb to it. And you, PerGron, are a terrible, terrible person for not understanding that.
Well, after she presumably gets assaulted, she starts talking. So
that's another like kind of Amelia Perez level. Like, what the fuck are you trying to say there, Brady?
Yeah, the next time we see her after that, she's
oh man,
she's chatting up again.
Right.
Like, are you implying that
basically, like, all it takes to loosen up a woman is a little... Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point, Crimson SP. She's mute. How do you know if... like, you... I don't like that moment at all. I don't like any sexual assault moments. I'm very... not sensitive to that stuff, but very, like... I find it very distasteful, especially when it's not done. Not that you can do it tastefully, but there's not many moments I can think of in any movie where I'm like, yes, that was entirely, like, I am cool with that being in this.
Right. I mean, like, you know, like Anora could have easily had a scene like that, and they very smartly chose not to.
Yep, they avoid it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I didn't like it in Joker, Folly of Shit. I didn't like it in anything it's in. Like, I don't, and especially if you imply it. If you're gonna do it, fucking do it. Don't imply shit. Don't be like, oh, maybe, tee-hee.
God. Yeah. So, I don't know, man. I just... with the second act, one of the things that also kind of falls apart is the fact that, like, and again, maybe this is just like the movie trying to be realistic, but like they go to Italy. I do kind of like that it's a little bit ambiguous why Van Buren decides to do what he does. I read it as kind of a potent mix of like, it's kind of a three-way thing where I do definitely think there's some homoerotic tension specifically between Van Buren, like, I don't think Laszlo feels it. I think Laszlo is frankly kind of asexual throughout most of the movie, honestly. Like, he's trying to get those hand jobs, but they're not working too well. You know what I mean? Like, but Van Buren, man, I definitely think, like, from the very beginning, there's something predatory to him and his dynamic with Laszlo. And then I think that I think another element is the fact that when they're in Italy, Laszlo is very much kind of like Van Buren's superior in some ways, because he's talking with the guy in the marble cave, and he's like, you know, they're like spouting like facts about like marble production and architecture.
They're
that
also speaking in a language he doesn't. Van Buren doesn't speak.
Right. And I feel like for a guy like Van Buren, who I feel like this man just is absolutely fueled by fragile ego, you know? And I feel like for a guy like him, it's definitely kind of like a blow to his ego that he's seen basically his little architect pet sort of like ascend above the ranks of the spot that he put him in. And then I think it's just simply like, on top of the jealousy, it's very much a power move. It's very much a, you know, like, you work for me kind of thing. And I do like that it's kind of like a little cocktail of emotion that goes into why he decides to do it. I think as far as the actual assault goes, I do like that they are pretty blatant about it, unlike the Nice scene. It does kind of smack you in the face. I don't necessarily know if it's necessary to the story, but I don't know. It's a bold swing. I'll give you that much. It's a bold swing. It's just a little too on the nose with the whole, like, he's literally getting fucked by the American dream.
Right.
The metaphor.
You're getting fucked by capitalism.
Pretty much, yeah.
Which is crazy, because there's really easy ways to just show that without, like, actually doing it.
I mean, I think they were doing a good job of it with the whole, like, the train happens, and then Van Buren's like, tough shit. Yep. Yeah. I do like Van Buren basically like, don't beg! It's unbecoming!
Yeah. I've had bosses like that.
In that moment, I kind of get the sense that Van Buren is desperately trying to, like, keep Laszlo in the, like, have the image of Laszlo that he had in his head, that he doesn't want to view Laszlo as someone who's pathetic. And then maybe that's also why the rape happens, because he does catch Laszlo, you know, in a total heroin spin out, which I'm assuming Van Buren is not a fan of.
After watching him dancing with another woman when he knows he has a wife.
Right, yeah. Let's talk about the female component to the Van Buren family, or rather the lack of females, because that is honestly, I think Guy Pearce's best monologue is the monologue about his mother. That's some captivating shit, and I hang on every word of that. What do you like? Do you think Van Buren is just a mommy's boy? Do you think there was potentially some abuse going on there? Do you think it was almost kind of like a fucked up, kind of incestuous sort of situation, or that he's like trying to pedestal worship her because she was abusive? I do actively like that element of the movie is a little bit of a Rorschach test.
Yeah, I kind of took it as she was abusive and he thinks he became a better man for it. Just like there's people out there, like boomers especially, but they talk about how, like, when they were kids they got beat and that made them better people. So I definitely think there's like there's a precedent set there where, like, yeah, I got hit with a belt every day when I got home from school and now I'm tough. So that's kind of the way I took it, is he's like, he thinks the person he's made, it comes from the abuse.
And I like I said, I definitely think that translates to the son as well. I think the son is very much going through, like, kind of like a cycle of abuse. He's He's putting his father on a pedestal.
Do we know what happened with the mother?
No, not really. All we know is
Yeah.
that the only thing we really know is that Harrison basically lays out like his time got too occupied by his children and his mother.
Uh-huh.
So I assume it's something where what I'm kind of reading into that is like I'm assuming that the mother probably saw the abuse that Harrison was taking from, or yeah, Harrison's wife was seeing the abuse that he was taking from his mother, and she also saw that it was kind of systematically creating this cycle of abuse, and she just couldn't be involved in it. That's how I read it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, let's be blunt here. Harrison is just more than a little homoerotic, just in his behavior in general. You know,
Yeah.
like.
You would think though that in that situation he would want to cover it up by being married though.
I don't know. Honestly, I kind of get the sense that like he doesn't like he's so far in the closet that he doesn't even entertain the notion that people would pick up on something's weird. He doesn't even want to like fucking entertain the thought that it's a possibility. He's very much an abuser where it's like if he rapes a man, it's not rape. Like he's not gay if he does that. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, there's a lot going on there. The sister is a very, very underdeveloped character, and I feel like that's one of the movie's weaker qualities. But at the same time, I do think there's some interesting subtext there. I think that she's going throughout most of the movie basically just in survival mode from what I can read. She's just kind of trying to be pleasant with the people. There's definitely some moments where it just in the background, you kind of have to read into it, but the tension between her and her twin brother is very palatable. And I kind of get the sense that maybe the twin brother was even abusive towards her a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, man. Honestly, at the end of the day, I think this movie just like, if this movie had maybe about like 20% more Van Buren in it, you know, like if we were introduced to them a little earlier on, if they stuck around a little more, because Laszlo Toth is a good character. He is kind of an iconic character in his own right, but at the end of the day, we've seen Adrian Brody play characters like this before. We've seen characters like this before who are basically like starry-eyed optimist immigrants who get fucked by the American dream. Laszlo's story is not really that unique when it comes to film. I think the Van Burens are, though. I think the Van Burens are kind of what gives this movie its spice.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Van Burens are like just this very, very, very specific type of fucked up wasp family that really does a good job of kind of getting into that sort of like grimy skeletons under the closet. How much do you really know about your neighbors? Sort of paranoia. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They also kind of take all of the concepts of like one of the great American dynasties and they kind of boil it down into like, yeah, most of these people just fucking suck.
Harrison Van Buren, frankly, is not skilled with anything.
No. And most of the robber barons of the time were also not skilled with much of anything. They were just
He's
were skilled
with being a people person. He's skilled with getting people on his side and being charismatic.
Charisma and skilled with having money.
Uh-huh.
And unfortunately, our billionaires nowadays only have one of those two things.
Oh, God.
And it's not charisma.
You think Harrison Van Buren would be out there doing Nazi salutes?
Probably.
Probably, yes.
Probably. Absolutely, actually.
It's a military salute.
Right. We beat them. We can take it.
Oh, God. I don't know. I just think Harrison Van Buren, again, even down to the name, his whole character is just fucking ridiculous, and I kind of love it. I definitely...
This movie either needed to be a little bit cheesier like a little more tongue in cheek, or it needed to drop some of that fucking pretense there.
Right.
You can have a character named Harrison Van Buren, 2 fucking presidents.
Right.
Or you can have a serious melodrama about the American dream. Like you can't have both. You need to be a little cheesier here, guy.
And again, I wish we had more moments like the Peter Piper sequence, you know?
Right.
The Peter Piper sequence really does kind of like I know it goes by quick and it doesn't really impact the plot at all, but my God, I think it happens. I noticed on the rewatch that happens literally right before Laszlo gets the initial offer of building the library. Like the next scene is Attila being like, "Hey, we got an important client." So I do like that in that moment. Like, what?
The son's name's fucking Attila. This is some megalopolis type shit. I'm sorry. The names in this movie are fucking megalopolis names.
I also forgot to go over my personal favorite Laszlo line, which is when they're negotiating the community center and they're talking about like, well, we were talking about like some sort of reading room. Yes, a library. No, it'd be more of just like a room for the public where they can sit and read. So, a library. That's great. That killed me both times. So, a library. Yeah, okay. I am not crazy about the fact that after the rape happens, even if realistically Laszlo would not want to have anything to do with Van Buren, I'm not crazy about the fact that, from what I remember, they literally don't share a scene together after that. Like, that's it. Like, to me, that is some wasted potential. I mean, it'd be like There Will Be Blood without the bowling alley scene. That's what it feels like, you know?
Right.
This movie needs a bowling alley scene.
And they had this set up for it. They had a bowling alley.
Oh my God, you're right. They totally did. I didn't even realize that. So Felicity Jones, I mean, what do you think that her overdosing on the heroin and then that kind of leading to Laszlo confessing the rape to her, do you think that justifies the heroin plotline at all?
No.
I think it does just a little. I think it's more relevant in this movie than it is in Queer.
Yeah, but also, you know, anything's more relevant than the fucking heroin was in Queer.
Because in Queer, it's literally like, we're gonna fuck off and try and find this like fucking magic mushroom or whatever the fuck.
Right, he didn't even. They dropped the heroin too. Like that. I could do a fucking hour rant about Queer, but they don't even keep with the heroin. They're just like, yeah, he has his withdrawals or whatever he was going through, like when he gets sick, and then he gets better, and then just they never bring it up again. But yeah, I mean, it's better than in Queer. But yeah, I still don't think it was necessary. And even if they wanted to do it, I think they could have executed it better. Like I would understand, like in a moment of empathy, him fucking shooting his wife up or whatever.
Well, I mean, I feel like you could read it as either empathy or desperation, or maybe a little bit of both.
I think both, yeah.
Like at that point, the niece is gone, and I think it's definitely a little selfish of him to just be like, oh shit, we're out of meds, so what's the next best thing?
Right.
And yeah, Crimson SP, just to get back to your point about the niece, I'm going to find your comment again really quick. What do you all think of Laszlo's niece being mute, then growing up and being like, we're going to go to Israel now? I thought that was one of the elements I really didn't like. Again, I don't like the fact that we're like shifting the actors around in the time period so much. I don't like the fact that the niece implies getting assaulted, and then the next thing we see from her is that. It's all very sloppy. I wish that these moments and these elements were tied up a little bit neater in the second half. So I do think what, for lack of a better term, Brady Corbet wants to do with the library scene is the Felicity Jones confronting the Van Burens.
Yep.
But again, it's just like
he didn't want to wrap it up after that.
Yeah. And I do think there's like a little bit of merit to like, it doesn't really matter what happened to Van Buren. He died in disgrace. It doesn't really matter.
If Corbet really wants to be this high and mighty fucking, I'm the greatest filmmaker of all time, like he's trying to show us, and he's like really exploring American ideology and American ideals and shit, especially at this time, and the immigration story, having him go out in disgrace after an act like that just doesn't sit right to me. Like, obviously, we as the audience know that's a terrible thing that he did, but if we're going to sit here and be like, yeah, this is the American dream and here's the metaphor for it, shouldn't he have gotten away scot-free? Like, that's so much more powerful, I think, being like, this guy has money, and so he has money and power, and therefore nothing happens to him. Having him be implied to like go kill himself because of one accusation doesn't, to me, feel like an accusation from an immigrant that he employed and fired. That doesn't sit right to me. It feels like, oh, everything will get better, which in this movie, and I don't get me wrong, I like a hopeful message, but in a movie like this,
now in that respect, I do think that there is some strength in the ambiguity of like, he could have killed himself, or he could have just like gone to fuck off in the pool or something.
But he couldn't swim. He said that.
Oh, you're right.
He said that in the movie. I can't.
Okay, well, excuse me. He could have gone and fucked off in the gym that specifically didn't have the pool. I think because he said that. It's like,
but they have him walking through water at the end. Like, the whole thing is flooded. I think to me, it was pretty clear what the implication was.
Brady Corbet is so fucking proud of himself that he didn't do the shot of Van Buren dead in the the light of the cross.
Yeah. Oh my God.
He's so fucking proud of himself that he didn't do that. But I'm like, dude, it's called setup and payoff, motherfucker. You
should have done it.
Yeah.
Do it. That would have been an awesome shot, even if it was what we were expecting.
Right.
Sometimes you expect things for a reason.
So that right there, I think is the thing about Brady Corbet's attitude about this movie that just rubs me the wrong way. Like, I'm so fucking clever because you expected me to do that shot and I didn't. I'm trying to think of like another example of like what movie like builds up. It's like if Dr. Strangelove, we never saw the bomb drop. You know what I mean?
Or even Oppenheimer for a more contemporary example. Or like...
The what now?
If you didn't see a bomb drop in Oppenheimer.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Or like Star Wars, a lightsaber doesn't ignite. Or, I don't know, fucking... You don't see tits in an aura. I don't know. They said,
or like the There Will Be Blood doesn't have the oil derrick sequence.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, there's some things that they're set up and cinematologically. That's not a word, but it is now.
Wow.
I'm coining that word. It's mine.
Wow.
Cinematologically. But like, I don't know. Like, if you want to be proud of not putting that scene in, you're going to be proud of a bunch of other dumb shit. And he's definitely proud of this dumb shit.
So, yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'm a little bit split because on some level, I do appreciate that there's a little bit of ambiguity. I'm usually one to champion a little bit of ambiguity. But like you said, a lot of the visual language does make it pretty clear, and the only way to make it more clear would be to include that shot we were talking about.
Right.
And then again, I kind of feel like, I mean, is it like borderline sexist for me to say that Laszlo's wife doing the talking for him kind of strips him of his agency a little bit in the story? Because that's honestly kind of the vibe I get. I kind of get like Laszlo at this point is so pathetic and beaten down that he literally can't stand up for herself, and her wife that's been confined. Oh my god, I literally just fucking got that
She's
metaphor.
standing up for him.
I
You got
literally
it,
just got that
Tiki.
fucking metaphor.
She's standing up for her family.
Wow. Smooth move, Brady.
Yeah, like I said with the substance, but this time derogatorily. Who the fuck is Subtlety? Never heard of her. Yeah, it's I don't know. I kind of like that she stood up for her husband after he put her through all that shit.
Right.
Like almost killing her.
Again, that's true. I mean, that does kind of show like that early scene that I was talking about in the bathtub where she's so happy just to hear his voice. I mean, it does kind of show just how powerful their love is for each other.
Which to me is so crazy because at the beginning of the movie, I was very much getting she didn't want to be there with him vibes. Like just from the letters and stuff that I was very much getting the vibes of like, I'd rather be in Europe.
Okay, I didn't necessarily get those vibes.
That's kind of how I read it, just based on like, he seemed to be writing with his whole heart and the messages were kind of
right.
half-hearted until he gets the rich boy's offer. and then the tune and maybe that's because they just didn't see a way to get her there before that. Maybe that's kind of the implication there.
I do like the implication, and it's a subtle implication, but I like the implication that Van Buren is rubbing elbows with like elite Jewish people, like the lawyer, and he has no problem with that. But like, I think one of the most cutting lines in the whole movie is in the trailer where Van Buren's son is just straight up like, "We tolerate you, Laszlo." Because PerGron, that like in a work situation or a social situation or something, someone fucking saying that to me is literally like my worst nightmare. It's literally like, well, shit, I guess I better just fucking assimilate myself away from this situation then. If you're just tolerating me, fuck me. Okay, let's see. The film also could have explored a Stockholm Syndrome dilemma for Toph too. He may despise Van Buren's treatment of him, but he was directly responsible for reuniting Isabel and niece in America. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That's the frustrating thing is I feel
that's
like
too interesting a concept.
I feel like after the rape happens, the focus basically shifts almost entirely into the niece has moved away, and now Laszlo's on his own to take care of the wife and her ailments and stuff, and he fucks up with the heroin. But we don't even really get into his headspace beyond the fact that he's kind of snapping at some construction workers. You know, like I feel like the movie really, really could have explored the fallout of that a lot more than it actually did. I feel like
one simple change could to the structure of this movie, not even like the plot, just the way it's organized. One simple change would have made a lot of difference, and I think that would be the assault should have been earlier in the movie.
Yeah.
I think if they made that early,
that should have been the Act 1 closer.
Maybe not the Act 1 closer, but maybe
like an inciting incident in the second half.
Yeah, like once the family's home, and maybe he goes over to like thank him for like getting his family there,
right?
And he like comes onto him in the library, and then like he wants to leave because obviously that just happened. He being Laszlo, he wants to leave, but his family is like, oh, these people are so nice, and that's why he keeps it hidden, to be like, I need to work for these people. This is where my value comes from.
Sure.
I think if they had restructured it and done it earlier in the movie, which
again, that's why I'm so split on this movie, because I think this movie still has like really, really genuinely fascinating like ideas that it's going with.
Yeah, it's not entirely executed the way I think it should have been.
Mm-hmm.
I think a little bit. I think one more rewrite one more little go through and like restructure a couple things, and this could have been a top 10 movie for me. But I don't know. I don't even think it would be in my top 20 of last year.
It wasn't my top 10, but I obviously saw less than you did.
Yeah, I saw 359 movies,
God.
counting The Brutalist.
All right. So let's just talk quickly about the ending, because even people that love this movie, I think, are kind of like trying to cope with the ending more than anything else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, went from opium to copium.
Oh God. Yeah. Let me just lay out what I think he's trying to say, and I think very much the point of the ending for me is the fact that, like, the niece is speaking for Laszlo, and I think that last line of, like, it not being about the journey but about the destination is pretty much horseshit and flies in the face of, like, everything we've seen throughout the movie. But I feel like that is intentional. I just don't necessarily feel like that was, like, for a 3.5 hour epic, the whole, like, oh no, now Laszlo can't speak for himself.
It's the destination, and also here's the destination of this 3-hour journey, and it fucking sucks.
Right. I don't know, like, and again, I kind of feel like maybe if we would have spent a little bit more time in this time period, like, what do you think of the idea, just conceptually, of Laszlo just not being able to speak for himself and his work maybe being misinterpreted? Because for me, I don't necessarily think that. It's interesting. Do you prescribe to the whole thing where he designed the community center to essentially be a concentration camp? Because for me, I just think Laszlo. I don't think Laszlo thought that deeply. For me, I think he just enjoyed the type of architecture.
I don't think that was the case at all. I think that was Brady Corbet's purpose.
Right.
In designing it. No, because, and the reason is we never get any other Holocaust shit. We never get him talking about it. We never get him, like, we don't see any flashbacks or pictures or anything. Not that there would be pictures, but
do we even know for sure if him and the wife were in the camps? I'm pretty sure they talk about that, but I feel like that's sort of like an important detail that, like, doesn't really get addressed.
I think they only talk, unless I'm missing something, I think they only talk about it in the ending sequence. Like, they definitely talk about, like, at the beginning where they're fleeing and the Soviets catch them.
Sure.
But, like, what are they fleeing? The Soviets wouldn't go after people fleeing a concentration camp.
Right.
Also, wouldn't they, like, I'm assuming she went mute after the camps, but, like, you would think that being mute, you wouldn't have made it out of that. So I don't know. I think that that's definitely, like, an interpretation put onto the art for the story by Corbet, but I also don't think Corbet, kind of like Laszlo, I don't think he thought about it that much. I think he's like, yeah, that would be kind of a neat thing for me to, like, I'm going to really tie in, like, the Holocaust at the end here. It's like, but that was, like, so much not a point of this movie. Like, I'm sure, like, if we had gotten any amount of discussion about it, like, any amount of discussion about it, I don't think Laszlo talks about it at all. Like, with his cousin, with his wife, with the Jewish lawyer.
Yeah. Right.
With anybody. Like, they have no discussion about this. And then you're going to just throw it in at the end, like, yeah, it's Dachau. Like, no, it clearly isn't. Like, because you didn't set this up. That's like Arya killing the Night King type bullshit. It's like, no, you didn't put any work into this. I'm not going to sit here and accept this.
You know what I also really find amusing? I could just picture fucking Bob Iger watching this movie and seeing, like, the construction take literally, like, 15 years and being like, there you go, see? Big pieces of construction take time, folks. It's like, no. And as I already said, I think Brady Corbet's whole fascination with casting that particular actress is like, oh, she's the niece, but then she's also the daughter of the niece. It's a little off-putting. I don't think that actress has that great of a screen presence at all to like have that sort of like acting heavy lifting, you know what I mean? Yeah. And then the fucking Chapel Row needle drop at the end. Some people love it, man. Some people are like, yes, that's the perfect tone to go out on.
They just love Chapel Row.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
They just love Chapel Row, which fair enough. Fair enough. But that is not the perfect way to go out on silence. That would have been the perfect way to go out.
Sure. All right. Well, I think we've pretty much said all we need to say about this thing, right?
Yeah, I've run the gambit.
All right. So yeah, I still give it like a solid 8 out of 10, but I completely understand your points. For me, I kind of look at it more so like I appreciate the ambiguity a lot, although I will acknowledge that certain parts of this movie are very frustrating. Out of all the stuff that can conceivably win Best Picture, I would probably like to see a Nora win, but I don't even think a Nora really has that much of a chance anymore. Honestly, I think it really is between this and Emilia Perez.
Which I will accept this wholeheartedly.
Right, yeah. I do think that this kind of has some important things to say about, like, you know, like, it's a pretty blunt film, but like I feel like the lesson of like don't trust the American dream, don't trust rich benefactors who are literally going to fuck you over, you know?
Don't trust the movie studio.
Yeah, basically. All right, so solid time. So join us next time where we're basically just gonna bitch about Emilia Perez for like 2 hours with the Oscar.
Yeah, we are. I'm gonna rewatch it to be ready.
Oh God! You have more courage than I do.
I'm gonna subject myself to rewatching it so I can be like, I hear my fresh perspective on why I hate this bullshit.
God. All right. Okay. Crimson SP says, "Good discussion. Glad I could digest my feelings for this film too, along with y'all. Like objectively ships passing through the night." Yeah, happy to have you, Crimson. You know, we try to this channel is more focused on like pop culture style stuff, so you know, like Marvel shit. But PerGron and I are kind of like the outliers where we do like to talk about these types of movies, and especially with the Oscars coming up. So you know.
You won't catch me on the Captain America video.
You won't catch me on that one either. But you know, maybe subscribe if you liked what you saw. You know,
on the Death of the Unicorn video, though, I'll be here.
right. All right. So yeah, big thanks to Crimson SP, along with brief cameos from Code Geass, Asher Barton, and Theme Park Priest for coming on. All right, and that'll be it. The bowling alley architecture is a metaphor for Marvel movies. Yeah, I can't disagree there. Bowling alleys are fun. Marvel movies are fun. Art, maybe not so much. All right. But Mary Poppins, are you sure you want to go from a penis to a vagina?